Okay, we're going live. Okay. Hey, Tom here, FlipAnything USA. So I've got, I've got Darius with me this morning. And, let's get your...
Morning. How's everybody doing?
I'm not hearing you.
You can hear me? I can hear me.
You're hearing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So, I just got back from California, and it was interesting to see, the people are kind of fed up with the local government there. The masks are coming off, the restaurants are opening, and life is kind of getting back to normal. But I'll tell you what the saddest things I saw out there in California was so many hamburger shops were closed. They like their hamburgers. There's Dan's and John's and Tony's and all these guys are out of business. Just a handful of people are surviving there. But anyways, when I was on the plane, I was watching a little bit of this video of Ben Mallah. It wasn't this video, it's another one, but this one I thought we'd grab. But also, I thought we'd pop over and look at this one too. This Dave Ramsey.
Kurt is in Fort Lauderdale.
And we'll take a look at both of these guys. Two different subjects. Dave Ramsey, he gives sound advice to people about not wasting their money. And people that seem to have a problem budgeting, have a problem with math in general. Fairly basic stuff to me anyways. But I know it's very useful to the people that just don't seem to have that skill set of being able to, have the disciplines and that sort of thing. But what do you know about Dave Ramsey?
I know quite a bit about Dave Ramsey. Like you said, typically his core audience is people that are focused on getting out of debt and usually are part of the working class. And I'm trying to think. Yeah, working class usually have a lot of consumer debt. So he has these 7 baby steps that he walks people through.
It's called baby steps?
It's called baby steps, yeah. So, and he has a class called Financial Peace and a book called Financial Peace. And it's interesting because he has created somewhat of a subculture of people. There's people who have like YouTube channels and brands built around kind of his practices and his principles. So I'm pretty knowledgeable on Dave's
Well, and I understand that, like I said, I've seen people. I mean, listen, I say the masses are the asses all the time, and I don't want to just say that's Ramsey followers or anything like that, or Ramsey. Obviously, I don't mean that. But it's very, very basic. It's risk averse. But really, if you're a knowledgeable investor, guess what? Just because you invest doesn't mean you're taking a risk. It's actually riskier to not invest. When you figure out you can calculate how little money you're going to have, add up your paychecks for the next 10 years, you're probably not a millionaire, even if you saved half of everything that you earned. Also, I just put out a video this morning, one made last week, and it was about Ben Mallah. And basically he had talked about being mentored and what a great advantage that was for him. Now, I was never mentored. I learned the hard way. I started really young, though. I started at 19 years old, and I had a set of circumstances that opened my eyes up to real estate very young. I bought a commercial building when I was 19, bought another 4 or 5 houses probably by the time I was 22, and by the time I was 28, I was a millionaire. And I'd bought land and all kinds of stuff in between. In fact, it was when I was 28, a friend of mine come over and said, "Tom, you own this, and this." And I said, yeah. He goes, "Why are you even working?" I had a cabinet shop I built up. I'd had that cabinet shop for 9 years, 8 months. And I said, you know what, why am I? And I sold that shop in 2 weeks. And so I was pretty proficient at building a business at that time. But also I was even, more adept at being a real estate investor. And it was just paying big dividends. And so I thought it was interesting because Ben basically got the benefit of advice from somebody like myself or like himself now. Back when he was young, I didn't get that. I started younger than him too, but I learned the hard way by just really, really trying. So the bottom line is I know you can shortcut and save a lot of time, make a lot of money with a good mentor. And that's what that video is about too. But hey, look, we'll get into this and listen to these guys, and you guys can comment. Maybe you can call in if you want to. We'll see if we can get that figured out. But let's get going. All right. Hey, before we get started, look, I'll introduce myself. My name's Tom. I wrote a book, Wake Up and Smell the Real Estate. It's done tremendously well. It's available in Audible, Paperback, Amazon, and also on Kindle. You can read the first few chapters free. Just go in there and you can get it for free. Watch a few chapters for free. And if that gets you excited about real estate, I urge you to buy it. Save a lot of time. That book has more information in it than courses that charge $10,000. Unfortunately, a lot of courses are actually held and supported and represented by people that really don't know what they're doing. It's a shame. But certainly Ben is not one of those guys. He knows a lot about real estate. So look, what do you say? You want to watch Ramsey first, Darius, or do you want to watch Ben Mallah first?
So we can do Ramsey first. I'm actually in the process of getting all 7 baby steps to read them off to you.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll be interesting. We can go through those baby steps. Yeah, I'm sure I won't disagree with a lot of what he's got to say. Ramsey's investment stuff has not been particularly exciting to me because, again, listen, you can't win the lottery unless you buy a ticket. And I realize the lottery is a foolish purchase, inject that ticket. But the bottom line is if you don't buy something, you can't make money on it. And there's not a better way to get rich quick than real estate. But you just have to have certain disciplines yourself about buying property, and that is buy it under market. Don't overpay for it. So let's watch this. This isn't a very long one. We're just going to watch this at regular speed. Okay. And let's get going.
Florida. Hi, Kurt. How are you?
Hey, Dave. How you doing?
Better than I deserve, man. What's up?
How you doing? I'm 25. I'm not filled with my job, and I'd like to move out of my parents' house, potentially looking up north. But I have about $50,000 in investments and $90,000 in my savings, and I'm blessed to have no debt. Should I move with the current housing market situation, or should I wait? And if I should wait, should I move some of that savings money into investment, make some money while I'm waiting?
Well, the housing market is, as you mentioned, is white hot in terms of buying a home. Some areas, the rental market is also closed up, and it's very difficult to find a rental. And so rental prices are going up as fast as real estate prices are, which there should be a correlation between the two. That makes sense. You have done a wonderful job saving money, sir. Well done. You save all this money, or did somebody give it to you?
I'd say about half, maybe a little less than half, is an inheritance from my uncle. The rest is all just me saving. My father and my mother, since I was young, have always told me, spend half.
Hey, I'm going to stop here just for a second because I can just tell you something. As a real estate expert myself, and I've made tens of millions of dollars, been very successful in real estate as an investor. It's always a difficult question when a stranger asks you, should I invest right now? Because the first thing when somebody asks me that is, I don't know your capacity to make a good decision. And that's the worst part, is I can't advise anybody to do something exactly, just with that basic question. Should I be investing right now? I mean, to me, the answer is always yes, if you know what you're doing. And then, of course, that's really the main information that you need before you can ever acknowledge whether somebody should do something or not. So let's listen to what Wayne has to say. Or not Wayne.
Dave.
Save half, and I just was never really a big spender, so I saved more than half at that point.
Wow.
And so I've just been saving I've been working since I was, 16, so I've been saving for a while now, and I'd always been looking forward to buying a house, and I just was feeling now was the right time. But with this housing market, I'm just it's kind of shot down my house.
You said you might move up north. What are you going to do for a living when you move?
I'd like to stay within the same industry, but right now I probably go more into analytics. That's what I like to do. Right now I do more risk management.
So, Kurt,
get into more analytical.
So I'm glad we've identified this, because moving up north, I think you had in mind there's some companies or a company or a specific job, and I think that's the part we want to work on first. Is you're not happy in your job, and so the good news is you're clear. You know what you want to do. You have a good idea of the analytics is where you want to go. I think I determined that. Where's a good place to land there? Then I'd make my housing decision based on that.
Okay.
So do you have a good idea of some companies, or do you have something? When you say move north, are you just thinking an area, or are you thinking company that's pulling you north?
I was thinking more just Orlando or Jacksonville, because I have current social networks there that would, and finding a job, there's obviously a lot of, within my industry, there's a lot in Orlando and Jacksonville. So I was looking there just to kind of get away from where I've currently been, where I've lived all my life,
Sure. Well, that's really good strategy. So, Kurt, I think you need to take some action steps. And so I would begin, if you haven't already.
Yeah. So, look, one of the things that comes to mind right away is, and it hasn't been, and this is the first thing that comes to my mind, is when somebody talks about an average guy, and this is a fairly average guy, he's done a real good job saving money, it sounds like, basically from just having a job, but he's got a job right now, so he's more bankable, okay? When you have a job, you're bankable. Guess what? When you don't have a job, you're not bankable. You're just not bankable. And so he's got two problems. He's wondering if he should invest in real estate right now. And he's also talking about moving into another state, right? He's talking about moving up north. I don't know that he doesn't have a job that he doesn't. In other words, so many people are working out of a bedroom now. I mean, maybe he still has that job when he moves up north. So that's what I want to know. Are you still employed when you move? Because listen, you should always invest, but you got to invest right. You got to buy under market. That's the main thing. But the other thing is, if you're going to be relying on a bank for a loan, which is what I'd be asking him, are you talking about making a purchase as such that you're going to need to borrow money? Because the bank is going to look at, that's just how it works. They're going to look at your employment, and they want to know that you've had a job for a couple of years. They want to know that you're stable. And so that would be the first thing I'd say is, yes, you should buy something. Interest rates are historically low right now, so you got a fantastic low interest rate. If you're buying a home for yourself, or even as an investor to buy something as an investment, you're going to get your best deal. But you're going to have to, are you going to have your job? Because if you're not going to have your job, you better buy before you change jobs. That's really important, because you're not going to have a choice. You're going to be shut down for 2 years if you don't have a job, or maybe a year. It all depends on the person, right? I don't want to make any be presumptuous on anything about this guy, make any assumptions. But the bottom line is, you need a job to get a loan. You need to consider, when you're going to buy, you got to buy under market. Otherwise, a hot market, Wayne talks about being a hot market. Listen, a lot of people say, oh no, don't buy anything. Wait for, in fact, the title of his video is, should I wait for the market to cool down? Should I wait until this housing market cools down to buy? Now, the answer is no, but that's qualified with, don't pay full retail. So many people tell people, oh yeah, it's a great time to buy a home. And they're talking about buying full retail. Never buy full retail. Never buy full retail in a slow market, never in a hot market. Never pay full retail, because you got no hedge against things dropping. If things drop, then you're in trouble. And in a hot market, and especially the kind of market that we have right now, I do think things will drop when more inventory comes online. I've talked about this. Right now, rents are kind of artificially high. Prices are artificially high. They're not high for the right reasons. In other words, they're high because there's just so much, there's a lot of inventory that's not gone on market, that's brand new in the process of being built. There's a lot of inventory that's not on the market because the banks are, dealing with this forbearance stuff, and people are dealing with people not paying their rent. Nobody can get kicked out. So a lot of people that are holding real estate, they can't wait to sell it, and they can't. Their hands are tied. But that's going to come to an end soon, and when that does, then the market will cool because there's going to be a lot more inventory. So he's got a couple things. you got to buy under market. You got to buy under market, number one. You can always buy anytime as long as you buy under market. But if you're paying full retail, I mean, I would just tell you never pay full retail. But certainly buying full retail in this market would be a big mistake. And so if Wayne, I want to call him Wayne because a friend of mine named Wayne, who actually just passed away, unfortunately. So anyhow, let's just keep listening for a little bit. And I don't know who this other gentleman is that's talking to, but he sounds okay.
You obviously have the social networks there. I would actually begin to engage those social networks around those companies. You identified both friends, connections, and several companies that are in your industry, or at least you know that it's pretty hot there. I'd start making those connections. I'm going to give you a copy.
Yeah, so look, it's obvious these guys are not real estate specialists because their emphasis already is social connections and this and that. And so anyway, we'll keep hearing what he has to say.
Of my number one best-selling book, The Proximity Principle, which actually walks you through step by step how to make those connections, who specifically you're looking at. Because I think if you get really serious about that, Kurt, right now you're in great shape financially. Let's find those opportunities. Let's go ahead and get interviews. Let's land the gig. And I think the housing decision will take care of itself because you've been very smart with your money. But let's land a job, and then let's make a housing decision as a part of that.
Yeah, here's what I will just add to that. I'll take the back end of that strategy. So start working the social networks. You're only a few hours from those towns. Get the job landed. Then go rent an apartment for 6 months. Then during that 6 months, start looking for property. Don't overpay. There's no reason for you to have house fever. You can take your time. And if the market's white hot and you have to dramatically overpay to get a house, then that's God saying don't buy a house right now.
Yeah, well, I'll agree with that. That's sound advice for what he's saying.
Just wait.
Okay.
Take your time. Sit in that apartment, in the new job, in the new city, and take your time. You've got the money. You can pounce when you see the right thing. You're in a position to do it, but don't get the fever and pounce, especially on your very first home purchase, and overpay after you've done such a great job saving money. So very, very well done, sir. Kurt is in for.
Yeah, well, I got to say, I was actually surprised that was the advice I was going to hear out of Ramsey. Yeah, I didn't like some. I mean, I've barely watched the guy, but I didn't like some of the stuff I've heard him say before. But the fact that he told the guy, don't pounce, and to, I mean, I guess if you have to rent, you have to rent. Maybe I missed something, but my understanding was the guy had a job, was going to be moving up north. But, if he's looking for a job, obviously he's going to have to land a job. But so not bad on Dave's part. I think he did okay on that. Again, the other guy seemed more concentrated on just the basics, But I'm glad he didn't totally poo-poo the real estate, which is what I thought he was going to do. So what'd you think?
So I was doing some research while that video was going. So to give the audience some context, so the other guy in the video, his name is Ken Coleman, and he's a part of Dave's team, but he's a career coach. So that's why a lot of his advice was talking about like on the career side of things.
When you say Dave's team, it's not a real estate team.
Yeah. So, but I mean, this goes in line with kind of Dave's mission or kind of his criteria for his audience. So like I said, I wrote down all 7 baby steps that I want to run by you.
Oh, okay.
To see.
Let's hit a few questions real quick here.
Okay. So the first question I saw was from Tina G, and she asks,
Tina. Yeah.
Tom, can you explain your process of determining if a potential investment property is under market value? A land example would be awesome.
Okay, well, just real quick, Tina, and I know you got a couple pieces of land you said after you bought the book, and I was glad to hear that. Or you landed a deal anyways. So it's really basic. It's just basic math. I mean, there's more to it than just that, but I go into any area where, let's say, where builders are building, okay, because you've already got those builders, as soon as they sell their property, they're going to be looking to build something, something new. And they got to be able to, they got to have inventory. Now, they don't have unlimited funds. They can't keep buying and buying and buying. So, and I've been a builder, and I built a lot of properties, actually. I built a lot of buildings, commercial and houses. So as a builder, I'm looking for a property that I can build on quick. In other words, I don't want any problems. I'm looking for utilities in the street. I want to see a water meter. I want to know that I can tap into the sewer. So sewer connection, water, and power. Basic things, electric, water, and sewer. So I would concentrate on that stuff, Tina. The main thing is you want to make it easy. And look, I've made tons of money owner financing property, and that's all in my book, by the way. Urge you to get my book. I'm going to keep pushing the book because, look, I make $7 on the book. I could care less if you buy it or not. But if you have an interest in real estate, it's the easiest way to shortcut so much stuff. Just get the book. And I think if you don't like it, you can send it back. But so back to Tina's question. So, look, I bought acreage and I've rezoned it and made it worth much more than it was worth. I've done even a small 1 acre property. I rezoned it multifamily. Both of them I rezoned multifamily, actually. I've rezoned 50 acres to 24 units per acre. I rezoned 1 acre to, about the same, but ended up putting 2 duplexes on it, each side of the duplex that sold for $600,000 aside, basically condoized that, 2 duplexes on 1 lot. So there's all kinds of ways, but the main thing, Tina, is if you're going to get into land, developable stuff is going to sell quickly and for a premium, and that's what builders look for. And in fact, one of the last houses I bought, I paid cash for a house. I think I paid, $250 or something. I sold it for $300 right after, but I bought it for $250. And then the people took those proceeds, they rented back from me, and while they rented back from me, they used the cash that I gave them to build a new home somewhere else, and they had hired a builder, and maybe I think they might have bought a lot before they hired the builder. So you're going to sell to 2 people in that situation. You'll sell to people that are buying a lot, and then they go find a builder, then others find a lot and a builder kind of almost at the same time. So otherwise, but basically, back to your question about how do you evaluate it, you got to just see what they paid, see what the builders paid for their lots prior to that. And then there's other things that come into play. Does your lot, is it on the golf course, or does it have a view? Is it flat, or is it going to be trouble? Because believe me, a flat lot is a wonderful thing for a builder or anybody. It just costs so much less to build on something flat, and that's another thing we look for. So go ahead. What else you got?
Yeah, you want to take another question?
Sure.
Okay. So Matt Martinez asks, what is your opinion on 1031 versus cash out refis? Pros and cons of both.
Well, I mean, the best thing about a 1031 is that you can turn the whole thing and you can take all the money out plus what you would have to pay in taxes and divert it into a new purchase. Okay, but now you've lost the previous investment, so whatever you buy better be substantially better than what you just left on the table. Hey folks, let me take a minute here to ask you to subscribe to my channel. It helps the channel. I try to cover a lot of content, share a lot of my life, a lot of what I've been doing for a long time, and what I'm actually probably the best at, and it's buying and selling real estate of all kinds. So it'd help me a lot. I'd appreciate it if you'd pound that subscribe channel, that subscribe button, and also like as well. But back to the 1031s. The pros and cons. 1031, obviously, you're deferring taxes, but you're selling the entire asset. It puts you under the pressure of having to buy something. Okay, when a lot of you don't realize, some people don't realize, when you sell a property and you go ahead and get an accommodator, you get a 1031. You only have 45 days to identify your property. That's a lot of stress. It's a lot of pressure. It's very difficult to find a property. So a lot of times, the ideal thing is you find a property to buy, and then sell your other property with the contingency, that they're going to cooperate with you in your 1031 exchange, and they're going to wait for you to sell your property. That way you already have the price. Now that's difficult to do, and then we'll get into a reverse 1031 is where you actually pay cash for the property, and then you use a 1031 to divert into it. Okay, now, the advantage of if you can pull the money out of, you already have an existing asset and it's damn near already paid for, and it's cash flowing well, then what you can do is you can pull money from that asset. In other words, you can borrow money. You can either get a new first, or you can get a second against it. Now, there really aren't too many negatives to doing that, in my opinion. You can pull money out. Now, you're not going to be able to pull as much cash out because you're not selling the entire asset, but you don't have the pressure of the tax burden you have when you sell the property. So that's probably the worst thing, is the tax burden of when you sell a property to reinvest and use a 1031 is, I mean, if you don't sell it, you got to pay a premium on the taxes. Now, if you're in the short-term or long-term capital gains, you're not going to get hit as hard. You're going to get hit for about 15 plus another 4% Obama tax, so 19%. If you sell, long-term, then you're going to get, at 30 plus 34%. I mean, and there's variables. You'll pay a little more if you're already in a higher income bracket. But either way, you're going to save 15%. Saving it, selling, no matter what bracket you're in, you're going to save 15% selling short term. Selling long term as opposed to short term. I think that probably covers it.
Gotcha. Okay. So the other question I see on here is Johnny Corbett asks, he said, Tom, how and when did you decide to exit the cabinet business and focus on real estate full time?
Well, it's kind of funny. Well, I was in the cabinet business, but the whole time I was in the cabinet business, I was accumulating property. Believe me, that was the brokest 10 years of my life, owning that cabinet shop, because whenever I did make money, I just always threw everything either back into a piece of machinery or equipment that I could make money with, or I would buy a piece of land or a piece of real estate. That's all I did, is I invested in my business, I invested in real estate, and that's all I did from the age of 19 to 28. Well, when I was 28, I was kind of sick of the business. I had a showroom in the front end of my building that I bought, first building I ever bought, and a customer comes in, and I was in a good mood too, and he says, hey, how much to make a light frame? And he pointed to the ceiling. We used to make these wood frames that would, make a flush light on your ceiling. And I go, I don't know, $160. I was doing him a favor at $160. And he looked at me and goes, $160? He goes, for that much, I'll make it myself. And I opened up the door and I think, go make it. I slammed the door behind him. And I realized, you know what, I was not, that's not the appropriate response to a customer, okay? I was kind of sick of what I was doing. And I realized, I was, in my mind, to be quite honest, I was thinking I was just going to close up. I had a couple $100,000 maybe in equipment. I thought I'd sell the equipment, maybe recoup, $100,000 of it. And then I'd seen a newspaper where it said business broker. I go, oh, business broker. T.C. Williams. It was an article on T.C. Williams, and I thought, oh, I can sell my business. Never thought of that. So, anyways, but yeah. So, and then actually, a week or two before that, a buddy of mine came in. He was running through my real estate stuff because I told him I was sick of the business. He goes, why are you even working anymore? And I go, well, I don't know. I just, I built a business. And he had said to me, he goes, well, don't you own this building, right? I go, yeah. And you own this, and you own this, and you own this, and this, and this, and this. And I'm like, yeah. And he said, why are you even working? He goes, why are you even working? And so I started doing the math, and I realized, shoot, I've got over $1 million in equity and cash between the two. And I said, I don't really need to do this anymore. And then I saw that article on T.C. Williams, a business brokerage. I got him in right away, and I thought, what the hell? Let's put it on the market. So we put it on the market for $250,000 for my business, and not including the real estate. And I sold the place in 2 weeks. And I've never looked back, and I've been full-time investor ever since. And like I say, and that's what did it for me. And what's sad is I could have done it probably when I was 25. I had enough income coming in. I just didn't need it anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I have a follow-up question on Tina G's question.
Uh-huh.
So you were talking about how when you're selling land to builders, it's easiest to sell to them. My question is, how easy is it to turn undeveloped land into developed land?
Okay, well, then you're becoming a developer.
Okay.
And I've done that too. It's just a hell of a lot more work. I could jump over to Google Earth here and I could show you a property that was vacant. I improved it, and now it's got 180 homes on it. And I made almost $3 million on it. I almost made $3 million. And I paid $200 for it, and I sold it for $2.8 million. And I'd actually had some deals in between renting it. But again, so the advantage about land, this is universal, developable or not. Generally, when somebody's looking for land, they know what they're doing. They know what they want. And so as an agent doesn't even have to be particularly bright, to be honest, because the person that's buying the land knows exactly what he wants. He knows what to look for. He's going to look for where's the sewer at, how far out is it, and what's it going to cost me to tie into the sewer, where's the water, is it on that side of the street or is it on the same side of the street as my property, do I have frontage on, asphalt? These are all the questions, I tell, when I give criteria to people. I say, hey, look, I'm looking to spend, maybe, I don't know, $1.5 to $3 million on a property, and I want a corner, I want paved, it just depends on what it is. Or it can be, I want paved, as much paving as possible, but I'd like to have 10 to 20 acres. You give them different criteria because, when you're buying land, you want to have as much paved frontage as you can get, because it's much easier to develop. You don't have to put in a street. If you've got a long, narrow strip of land, deep enough for a home, and it's long, you just chop that thing up like a pizza, and everything's got frontage, and it's easy. It's just easy. And that could be for commercial, it could be industrial, it could be any kind of property, because it just saves you having to put in all those improvements that you have to if you develop like a track. If you go in and you build a track, you got to bring in utilities and sewer lines, and all this underground stuff has to come in. And then you got to worry about the grade, and you got water detention and where it flows and where it's going to go. And then you're going to have tree surveys and all kinds of stuff. And I'm not discouraging you from it. It's I don't do it. I pay somebody to do it, so it's not that hard for me. It's just me giving money to somebody that's doing these things. But it takes time and holding costs, and that's kind of how that works. There's holding costs along with developing.
Gotcha.
So how much, Johnny Colbert?
Yeah. Well, so I want to go to Matt Martinez before we go to Johnny.
Sure.
So Matt asked, he says, I have seen Ben Mallah adding affordable housing in his portfolio. Have you ever thought about doing that, or is that too much of a headache?
That's not my specialty. I've had one HUD property, one that I can remember anyways, and the guy had lived there for 7-8 years, or maybe 10 years before I bought the property. And then I turned it in about 5 years. I held it for a while. And it was, it's just somebody else pays their rent. Affordable housing usually means government pays for the housing. And, they're not always the best tenants that I've experienced, what I've seen. This guy actually was not bad. He's a little bit of a freak in some ways, but I won't get into it.
What does that mean?
Yeah. He had some strange stories. He'd make you uncomfortable. If you listen to him for 5 minutes, you'd be like, I got to get out of here. This is weird.
What? Who locked the door behind me? What's happening?
Yeah. Oh, no, I wouldn't go in a room.
That's funny.
Yeah, you'll encounter, I'll tell you what, that's one of the best things about being a landlord. You got hundreds of tenants, and it's just so cool to be friends and with your tenants, and you learn so much because there's so many different ways to make money. It's just mind-boggling, how many different ways there are to make money. So, and you'll find that out quickly when you have tenants. You say, what are you looking for, and then why, and what do you do, and then all kinds of stuff. What else?
So Johnny Corbett asked, how much leverage do you suggest for commercial properties?
Well, when you're young, you're kind of forced to get as much as you possibly can, or you're probably not going to be able to buy it, right? But it all boils down to cash flow and money. So if you can buy something with 10% down, that's what I did. I bought my first one 10% down, and I needed a place to rent. So it was a no-brainer. I paid 10% down. I bought the building, and my payment was about the same as it would have been. Probably it was actually a little less than, because I bought the property right, than what I would be paying rent to somebody else for the same building. So you can weigh that out. If you're going to buy something, a commercial property that's for your business, you're going to get a very good interest rate. You're going to have to put the least amount of money down, and you own it. And again, if you have to rent anyways, now you don't have to rent because you're buying and your payment's the same. So it's kind of a wash. So that would make sense in the most conservative way, or even the most liberal way, really, when you think about it. But now, if you're an investor like me, then it becomes a little different. I make a lot of money on borrowed money, and so does Ben. So we'll buy something with, 20, 25% down, the balance carried, interest only if possible. Some banks will fly with that, others will not. But either way, if you're making, 8%, a cap rate, you're making 8% on the total purchase. So you paid $1 million, it brings in $80,000 a year after all expenses, $80,000 a year. Well, if I put 50% down, then I'm making, 8% on my 50,000, so there's 40,000. And then on the other half, let's say I borrowed at 4%, I'm making 20% on the other half. Now, do that on 80%. If you're borrowing 80%, now you're putting 20%, now you're putting $200,000 down, and you're making, $16,000 on your $200,000. And then on the other 80,000, this is what's really cool when you start doing the math on this. On the other 80,000, you're making, 64,000, but you got to give half that to the bank. So you give them 32 in interest. So now I'm making 16,000 on my 200,000, but I'm making 32,000 on the borrowed money. That's what I'm clearing. So I make 32,000, twice as much on the borrowed money as I do on my cash. So just, you got to factor those kind of things in when if you're, like you said, if you're going to leverage. If you can leverage, it's wonderful. The property's paying for itself, and you're making money on that money as well. So it all, leverage is fine. Leverage is fine, and believe me, when you leverage into a bunch of stuff like that, you'll never want to sell it, and then you blink, and 15 years goes by, and now you own all this stuff outright. And then you can start, you can go borrow 100% against certain properties, because even if you borrow 100% on a bunch of properties, as it relates to your overall portfolio, you still may be very, just slightly leveraged overall in your whole portfolio, because you just didn't, that's just kind of how it works. You get things paid off, things go by, time flies, and then you just keep buying more.
So I don't see any additional questions from the audience just yet, but I would like to take this time to go back to the baby steps, if you want to get your insight on it, or do you want to go to
you know
Ben
what?
Mallah?
Let's jump over to Ben Mallah here
Okay.
real quick, and then we'll come back to that, if that's okay with everybody else. Because Ben's a great guy, and I'm curious to see what he has to say, and we'll jump back. All right, so this is Ben Mallah's How to Negotiate. I haven't watched any of this one. There's something else I watched, but it wasn't this one. But I thought, what the hell? Let's look at this, because this is so important. And that's how I correlate these two with Ramsey's. Is it's always a good time to buy property. I say it all the time. There is no bad real estate. There's just bad deals. Don't make a bad deal. But knowing how to negotiate is key, and I'm sure Ben knows his stuff. So let's watch. So let's watch Ben.
Negotiating is something that everybody should do, no matter what you're buying. Everybody's buying something. You can't go into the grocery store and negotiate the price. I tried. It doesn't work. You can go to the butcher. Let me tell you, I have done it. Maybe if the date is getting kind of old on the meat. I love negotiating. If it was a $40 piece of meat and I got it for $20 and I'm cooking it tonight, so what do I care? Jewelry, oh my God. The jeweler I go to, I put him to bed. I don't have to negotiate with him anymore. Whatever the price is in his store, I'm going to get a minimum of 50% off, whatever that.
And see, I bet the jeweler knows that.
He's like,
So when he comes in, double the prices. Ben's coming in. No, I'm sure he's sharper than that. But I do like what he said about the meat. If you're going to eat it that day, yeah. I love negotiating too, and there's all kinds of ways of doing it in a lot of different scenarios. This is kind of fun to listen to. Let's keep watching.
That price is. That's the markup on jewelry. I read the comments, and a lot of people have questions about negotiations. Takes a long time to say the word. Negotiations are like fishing. You throw the hook and the bait in the water, and then, you get that fish to start biting that worm, baby. And once they start biting it, you're tugging, and they're trying to eat the worm, and you're tugging, and they're trying to eat the worm, and the bigger the fish, the more of a fight you got. But eventually, you reel that fish in, baby, and you got the property for the price you wanted to pay. That's what it's all about. It's a process. Now, sometimes there ain't no room or time for negotiation. Sometimes you gotta lay a quick cash deal down, and that's what the person wants, and you gotta pay it.
So I liked his analogy on that as far as, negotiations about, once you get them engaged in, now you're considered a buyer, they're considered a seller, or vice versa. You've got the conversation going, and then you can. That's one of the best things. You're engaged, and that's one of the most important things is get somebody engaged with you, because then it's either going to go up or downhill. But if ultimately you want to come to a conclusion quickly. So that was a pretty nice analogy on that.
It's a good deal. You'll pay it. You find a piece of property you like. The first thing you got to do is tie it up.
Okay, yeah. And so now he's talking about the stuff that you got to do really quick. And that boils down to being prepared. 'Cause sometimes you don't even listen. This is one of the most beautiful things is and this is about moving very quickly, is a property pops up and because you know value and your experience, and you go, oh my God, this is a fantastic deal. And I mean, you don't even mind, you'll pay more than what they are asking for it. So now your objective is to negotiate and get this thing closed as fast as possible before somebody else comes in behind you and spoils your good deal by offering more. And that's where you need to move quickly, but not seem so anxious that the person thinks, maybe I'm selling it too cheap. And sometimes you'll be in a spot where you're buying something and you're buying it for like whatever. It could be $1 million less than it's worth, or hundreds of thousands of dollars less than it's worth. And you don't want to seem too anxious. But you want to be first, and you want to get it closed, and you don't want them to shop it. So there's a lot of finessing that goes on when those kinds of deals happen. Let's keep listening to Ben. We'll talk more on that later.
How do you tie it up? You write up a contract. But before you do, you got to negotiate. And then there's different steps in negotiating. You do some negotiating in the front. You can do some negotiating in the middle. You can do some negotiating in the end, okay?
So, and when he says that, he's talking about you're doing the initial negotiation to get it signed, okay? Then you've got these contingencies like, I have time to take a look and make sure that the property's sound. Well, then there's you find some problems, and then there's some negotiations on, hey, who's going to pay for this? We found problems you didn't disclose or know about. And then in the end, just before you close, you may have some more negotiation room. You might even, sometimes I'll even say, hey, how about if we got maybe 2 months left to close this deal, I'll say, how about we take off another $100,000, but I'll close it next week. And sometimes that flies. And of course, I want to close it right away because I'm going to start making money on it right away. But that can all part of negotiation. Let's keep listening.
We'll get to that part after we get to the front. The front part is you make them an offer. All right, you can write up a contract. You can write up an LOI. I'm so simple sometimes.
I don't like LOI, okay? I'm just going to say right now, I do not like an LOI. An LOI is a letter of intent. I can't stand it because it's really not even worth the paper it's written on, because it says, this is what I intend to do. This is what, it's not firm. And I've been just furious when I say, look, I want to buy that, write it up. And then all of a sudden they send me back an LOI. I don't want an LOI. I want a contract. I mean, an LOI is not an LOI, letter of intent. It's not binding, okay? It just says, this is what I would like to do. And to me, it's just the biggest waste of time there is. But sometimes you're forced because that's what you're dealt with. And I know Ben knows this stuff, but I can't stand LOIs because they're leaving room for somebody to come in and spoil and take away your deal. I always deal with contracts only. I want a contract. Within the contract, I'll give myself some escape room and some time to get out if it's if the deal goes sour, I don't like it for whatever reason. But a letter of intent, to me, I don't like it.
Sometimes, I'll do it back and forth on my phone on an email or a text. But the point is, you got to try. You need to find out what that seller's rock bottom number is. What will it take for him to sign on a dotted line and adios amigo?
That's the key.
That's your job.
And see, there is no signing. I mean, an LOI, like I said, it's not a contract. It's just like, yeah, this sounds good. So let's keep listening.
Typical deal. Guys, at $1 million for something you want to buy. My rule of thumb is I'm always going to come in with 20% less. Okay, because that in a normal real estate world, that was my practice. That's if I really like the property and I'm even happy at the price he's selling maybe, I still always try to come in 20% less.
See, that goes to what I was saying earlier about having a property that you're willing to buy just as it is, maybe even pay more for it than that. You don't want, you need to make the seller feel good about his sale, and giving him what he wants exactly is not going to make him feel good. Offering him less and then giving him what he wants for it will make him feel a hell of a lot better than just saying, I'll take it for $1 million. So like he said, offer 800, let the guy come back, for whatever. Maybe he'll come back a full $1 million again. You say, how about 900? And then he'll say, well, I'll take, 950 or something like that. And you go, all right. You make him feel good about the negotiation. But you don't want to take so much time that somebody else comes along and says, I'll give you 1.2, and then you're blown out of the water. So let's keep watching.
That's on a decent deal. Now, if it's a hairy deal and it needs a lot of work, well, then it's a whole nother ball of wax. Okay, he wants $1 million. You figure out how much the place needs. You went around, you looked at the place. Oh man, I'm going to spend about 50 grand here. Well, fine. If you're going to spend 50 grand, tell him 100. You got to have a cushion. You got to have a safety factor. You got to leave room to negotiate. If it does need 50 grand and you just say I need 50 grand, you may not get the 50 grand. You didn't leave no room to negotiate. I might ask for a credit on something because I know that roof needs to be replaced in 2 years. Well, in 2 years, I'm going to have a $100,000 roof bill. But I'm going to negotiate now when I buy it to try to ease the pain on that roof bill. And in 2 years, I'll have to fork out 100 grand and pay for a new roof. But get the damn money now, or use it as a tool to get the property for less money now. It's all about buying it for as cheap as you can.
Yeah, this is all great advice, what he's giving you. A lot of people don't factor in enough for deferred maintenance. I buy buildings and it's like, geez, it's gone so far that the money for a new roof or whatever is almost going to be needed immediately. And in fact, you'll find out tenants are complaining about certain things that haven't been handled, and you'll quickly find out that you're going to be hitting those expenses a lot earlier. So we'll keep watching.
That's the buy side. The sell side is a whole nother subject. We may have to do a whole nother thing on sell side. Let me know if you want to do video on negotiating and dealing on the sell side, okay? What else? So, we're going to negotiate, okay? If your agent isn't willing to go back and forth, okay, if something's $1 million and you're at 800, he's at $1 million, and he comes down to 950 and you go up to 850, it's a game you got to play. So, if your agent ain't willing to play that game, then he ain't the right agent.
Yeah, get a new agent.
So what else? My shirt's...
Yeah, and that's another thing too that you'll run into. You'll get an agent that has the listing, and you're saying offer them 20% less than they're asking. Well, a lot of times that agent is kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, or they feel they are, and so because what it is they listed that property, and it's already kind of a given that they helped determine what a fair price is. And so if you're an agent and you represent to a seller, $1 million's a fair price, that's what we'll ask. And then all of a sudden a buyer comes back wanting through you, and now you got to go, well, they're willing to pay 800, and they're going to look at you and say, well, you said it was worth $1 million. You go, yeah, well, I don't think we should take this. So it gets more complicated. Sometimes you're actually better off. I always try to use the listing broker, because even the listing broker, they can become a part of your negotiation in as much as they're going to get twice as much commission because there is no other agent involved. And so you can even put the bug in their ear and say, look, why don't you reduce your commission, 20, 30%. You're still making more than you would be getting half if I went to another agent. And so sometimes that can be a part of the negotiation, is that the agent reduces their commission. And it's easy to do, of course, when the agent represents both sides. So,
too tight. You need a good agent to negotiate for you. You want that middleman anyway. Okay? When you got a middleman, for some reason, it doesn't get personal. You're not dealing with the owner direct. Let the agents do that. That's their job. And that other agent is going to push his seller to selling because he knows he wants to close that deal.
Yeah, now I agree with him on that, but there are some caveats on that because sometimes you'll deal with an agent and they become kind of part of the problem. They become too protective of the seller. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll say, you know what, I want to go ahead and do a walkthrough before I make a deal. Well, guess what? When I go in the walkthrough, I meet the owner and I develop rapport immediately with the owner and start to talk to him. Now he likes me, I like him. Now he is more apt to take the price down just because he likes me. That happens. People do care about who they sell to. Whether they should or not, that's a different story, but they do. Yeah, let's keep watching.
So he's going to push and he's going to work with us too in a way because he's got, something in it for this deal closing. So anyway, work for your agents, go back and forth. I don't care how many times. Okay, there's no such thing as insulting anybody. I was insulted by that offer. We're doing business here. It's numbers. It has nothing to do with personal feelings. Because typically, if you're trying to buy something cheaper, you're probably giving them something too in return.
He says that, but you can tell. He said, that's insulting. He knows, and I know, I'm not insulted. I'm amused sometimes when somebody really offers me a low offer. But you do run into people that do feel insulted by such a low offer if they're really proud of the property, especially if it's somebody's home, and they've done a lot. I remember a lady having a statuary. She had statues, like hundreds of concrete statues in her backyard, and very proud of her home. And then she was trying to leverage that and try to get more money out of me for her statuary. And I'm like, look, I'll give you an extra $1,000 to haul it off because I was just thinking about the bucket loads of concrete I was going to have to take out of there, in a tractor, and it was going to cost money. So, yeah, some people can get insulted, and you'll lose a deal sometimes with somebody, for over different reasons. It's kind of surprising. But let's keep watching.
It means you're going to buy it quicker. You're going to buy it as is. You're not going to have financing contingencies. You're going to limit your inspection contingencies to where they don't go out forever. You're going to give them a tight deal.
Yeah, agreed. That's one of the things I always tell you. And I tell you in my book, if you don't have my book, get my book, folks, because I have a chapter in there called Let the Seller Make the Offer, too. A lot on negotiating. But you got to make it easy. I buy everything as is. You want to make it as easy as possible on the seller. That's what makes you attractive, more attractive than everybody else, eliminating contingencies. So you can say, yeah, there's no financing contingency. I can pay all cash. Now, a lot of you can't do that. I couldn't do that in the beginning. Now I can do it sometimes, not all the time. But that is a huge thing, is you just want to eliminate contingencies. You want to make them feel 100% sure this deal is going to close. And like I'm in the middle of a negotiation on something right now, and the seller had to go get a $14,000 test on the property. I said, look, you got to get this test done. I can't buy it unless you have this test done. They go, well, can you pay for it? I go, no, I don't want to pay for it. I want you to pay. They go, well, how about you pay for it, but we'll take it off the purchase price. I said, well, I'm not going to buy it if it fails the test. There's all kinds of things you run into in negotiating, but and you'll decide what works for you. But in general, I can tell you the number one thing is don't be a pain in the ass. Make it easy. Everything should be easy. And believe me, you can have a contingency and without even actually disclosing it. You can have a reason like, well, I just want to make sure the title's clear and it's satisfactory to my purposes. And you can have a perfect title report after that, but you might find all kinds of other garbage that there's a problem, and then you can turn it away from that. You can still raise the issue in getting the prices down, but again, you want to make it very easy, and you want the person to know that you're going to close. And that's because that's what they want. They don't want to engage with somebody that thinks they're gonna bail out. What do you think, Darius?
I mean, this is all fascinating to me with negotiation and the art of getting what you want. And I think it's funny because I'm sure a lot of people are afraid to negotiate. So it's definitely a skill that you have to learn and develop.
Yeah, you do. And I can tell you, though, but it's like swimming. It's not as hard as you think. You just got to start. Hey, please like and subscribe if you just got here. Please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel. I like sharing with you, and it gives me some feedback. If I see the likes, I see the subscriptions, I know I'm doing something right. And always comment if you can. But yeah, you're 100% right, Darius, because I get that all the time as people are just like terrified. Oh, what if the seller doesn't like what I'm offering? They're afraid. And that's what Ben said. A middleman is a beautiful thing, especially for people that don't like to deal face to face. Because like I say, you don't have to look them in the eye when you give them a low offer. But a lot of people, you got to understand, sometimes you got to go knock on a door. Sometimes not everything's handled by an agent. There is no middleman. You got to go there. So, and I've got thoughts on that too, I can tell you. So when you're dealing directly with an owner on a sale, you can kind of create a middleman, and the middleman is circumstances, and that is, hey, I like your property. I'm always say I like your property. I always like it. It's kind of ridiculous to say beat up the property as being a piece of shit, but you want to buy it. Really, you want to buy shit? Why? It just doesn't make sense. You're contradicting yourself. So you always should like the property and appreciate the things that they said about it. But the way you can kind of romance the deal and get a better deal is you talk about, well, I'm trying to justify the numbers. So I know you want this, and if I put 20% down and I owe you 80%, and this mortgage on this 80% is going to be X, how do I make the money to pay this mortgage with what you're selling me? And then they're kind of going, that's a reasonable way. I mean, because at some point they bought it, could have been 10 years or 5 or 20 years before that. They figured out a way to make the mortgage, from whether it was their job or whether it was the asset itself produced an income to pay for itself, which is presumably what we're talking about. If we're talking about commercial, and I assume we are, since we're, it's Ben. So you have to get there a different way, and then that way is without offending the person selling it to you. You have to produce reasons why this is seeming unfeasible, and what can we do how do we accomplish that? Maybe if they own or finance it at a really low interest rate, then the numbers will drop enough that you can afford it, because you'll have the delta between the income coming in and what's going out, and part of that, of course, is the mortgage, whether it's owner financed or not. So these are the kinds of things that there's a lot to learn. And for those of you who don't know it, I have a mentorship. In fact, I'll plug the mentorship real quick. Here, watch this, then we'll come back. We'll start taking questions. Hi, I'm Tom McKay. I've been investing in real estate, commercial properties, industrial properties, houses, apartments, offices, subdivisions. I also have a mentorship course to help people create their own fortunes the same way. My first class, I had immediate results. Ron made over $200,000 and has purchased 22 properties. Eric has purchased a trailer park and 34 acres of land. Liam has already flipped a few properties and made over $100,000 on his first deal. All right, Darius. So what do you think of what Ben had to say so far?
I like it. I mean, I love hearing about negotiation tips, and even the tidbit that you added on the end. It's super helpful because, when you're new to this, it can all feel very overwhelming, but it really is just two people having a conversation about something.
Well, that's how you should try to make it anyways. And, and listen, and don't get so caught up. A lot of times, you're salivating over the deal you're going to make and stuff. I like meeting people. I like making friends, and I kind of consider everybody I meet a friend. And, hopefully that's that's how it would continue. And people I've bought property from, sold property to, we're still friends. And so I like it that way. Let's see. Let's get into some questions.
Yeah. So I got a couple of them lined up here. So Ray Hack, I hope I say his last name right, but he says, I live in Florida and now is extremely favoring sellers. Do I wait for a crash or keep looking for an investment property due to the low interest rates? I have a property already and manage it myself.
Well, it's just numbers, Ray. I mean, let me put it this way. I bought a property last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. It's worth $385,000 to $420 right now. I bought it for $303,000. So I could turn it today and make $80,000 without even doing anything to it. Or, okay, and I'll probably hold this one because I've got the thing. I did a 1031. So this property here, if I sell it, it's all profit. So it means if I sold it for $500,000, then I got to go find something to buy right now, which I'm busy enough right now. I'm busy enough because with the other things that I bought. But so the answer is you got to buy it right. There's no bad deals, you know. There's bad deals. Just don't make a bad deal. You know, there is no bad real estate or even a bad time. You just got to buy it under market and make sure that, you know, it makes money. If it makes money and you know it's going to stay occupied, then you can justify, well, even if things go down, it stays occupied. I got a low interest rate. You know, there's different justifications, and everybody's got a different situation. You know, there's some people that are like doctors, people that are on call, that are working all the time. They don't have the time to get as good a deal as somebody like me or somebody that's self-employed, that's in control of their schedule, where they can drop everything, go do this, drop everything, go do that, look at something. That's a huge advantage, is a flexible schedule. And a lot of people, you have that even if you're working from home for somebody else, because you're on a computer, maybe you can do your work later that night. Some people have that flexibility. Some people don't. So that comes into play. But if you're just somebody that is just, you make good money, but you're busy, your job's so important that you want to keep your job and you got to work it, then you can take a little bit less as good a deal. You don't have to have the standard quite as high as maybe somebody like myself, because you don't have time to shop for a super deal. I see my messages keep popping it up on the screen. Anyhow, what do you think about that, Darius? While I go address this issue.
No, I agree with you. I think, anybody that's been following you for a while understands that every day is a good day to buy real estate. And it's more of buying it right and not overpaying or paying at market value. Get a deal, negotiate.
It doesn't matter when you buy. If you're getting a deal, now don't get me wrong. You could, like right now, a lot of the houses have gone up $200,000. $400,000 house goes up to $600,000. There is some concern about what is buying it right. Yeah. Even if you buy it $100,000 off, and then things level off, and they level off at that $500,000, that can be of concern. But again, if you buy something now and you get a great deal, then you can just flip it. You can turn it, or you can look at what's the income it produces and say, okay, well, even if things go down the tubes, I'm still going to have a nice income. It's going to cover the mortgage because the interest rate's so low. A lot of people are excited to lock in an interest rate now in fears that they may go up, later on. So what other questions we got?
So Vic Cyan, I think I said their last name. I'm messing up these last names. But he asked, at what price range in commercial real estate does owner financing stop or become more rare to pull off?
God, I would say it becomes more rare over $1 million in general. I've bought plenty of commercial multifamily properties that were under $1 million, and I think the reason for that is, a lot of people think these commercial properties and these things are just for the big guys but they're not. A lot of commercial properties that you see were started with a mom and pop shop, and you can almost see it reflected in the structures that you'll buy. You'll see like a little crappy building attached to a better building, attached to even a bigger, better building. And what you're looking at is the growth of a business. It's the American dream. They started with this little shack that they bought, had some extra land, business grew, and then they added on, and then they added on again. And then you got 3 generations of growth, not people, but 3 generations of growth through a business cycle. And now these people are retirement age, and maybe they sold the business, and the business said, well, we want the business, but not the building. So they bought the business, and then they moved elsewhere, the big company that maybe bought them out. And now they still have their asset, the real estate, and now they're going to sell it. Well, they have already got so much money and already got a tax issue from the sale of their business. Now they don't want to pay even more taxes on the gains on this building that they're going to sell. So they might choose to rent it, which is what I did when I sold my business. Or they might say, hey, you know what? Let's sell this thing, but I'll sell it owner financed. And also going back to negotiations, you, as a good negotiator wanting to buy it, want them to owner finance it. You're going to explain to them, say, hey, you know what? And you can say, if you don't mind me asking, what are you going to do with the money anyhow? Are you going to just reinvest it? Are you going to put it in the bank? And if they're going to put it in the bank, that's a no-brainer. They should owner finance. Say, well, why don't you just, instead of giving it to the bank, and they're going to give you less than 1%, then I'm going to go to the same bank, and they're going to loan me your money at 3.5%. So why don't you just carry the note at 3.5%, and we'll make this deal. And now you can buy it, and you don't have to go through all the hoops of and maybe you don't even qualify for that type of loan. The first several loans that I got that were owner financed, I couldn't have gone to the bank. It just wasn't even an option. I didn't have enough credit. So it always makes sense. But yeah, to your question, in my experiences, the deals under $1 million are generally owner financed more often than deals over that amount. And I've done lots of it.
Gotcha. So Matt Martinez asks, how has Ben gotten to $250 million? I feel like he 1031'd over his 30-year career. He was pretty much saying he can't really get to that evaluation, and he feels like, how would you suggest maybe Ben got to that amount of net worth-wise?
Well, I think Ben had a unique thing. And in fact, if you get a chance, watch my other video because it's on mentoring, and it's kind of the difference between me and Ben. Look, I started with 0, no mentor, and I just had to go from 0 to 5,000, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 50, to hundreds to millions of dollars, profits on deals. It takes a long time, and Ben, he somehow crossed paths with somebody that became his mentor. And this guy liked Ben because Ben got the job done. And I always tell everybody, listen, if you're going to go to work for somebody, you better make yourself an asset, because when I hire somebody, I'm hiring them to make my life easier. I want them to do the shit that I don't want to do, and I want them to do it better than I can do it. I hire people better than myself. And so that's what Ben represented. Ben, this guy, it sounded like from one of his descriptions, he said he gave him a 38 and said, go get the rent. So maybe he was a tough guy going over and collecting rent. I think there's a hell of a lot more to it than that. I think Ben's a fantastic property manager, and I consider myself a good one too. And you just treat your tenants like customers. It just makes good sense to do so. But does that answer your question?
Yeah. So, there's not another question, but there's kind of a comment or another way of saying this thing from Ultimate Bargains. He says, this is in terms of when you're talking about like negotiating. So he goes, Mr. Seller, I am buying a house this week, and I am considering several houses. Speaking quite frankly, I like your house better, but buying one of those other houses make more sense. What's your thoughts on the way he's kind of,
like threatening to buy somebody else's home instead of theirs? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't put it quite like that, but what you can say in similar, you're basically trying to create some pressure and sense of urgency. I do it all the time. I tell people, I got to leave town Friday. Can we get this thing signed? I just want to get it signed before I leave town. Or in your situation, say, I got to buy something. I like yours best. But, I can't drag on forever. Can we, you just got to give them a good reason of why you need it signed, other than I'm going to make a ton of money off you. Okay. And so that's kind of where it goes. But anyhow, let's listen to the rest of Ben here. Got another 4 or 5 minutes. Also, you notice I haven't been playing this at high speed. Do you guys enjoy it? Do you want me to run at higher speed, or do you enjoy the low speed? I cover more. Probably quicker, but anyways, let's take a watch. But comment to Darius there if you want it faster or slower in the future.
Nice and tight. So, hey, how you doing? So that's a story, okay? Negotiate. Never pay the asking price, because they are probably already built in a cushion to where they're happy to negotiate. They're willing. They know they're going to have to negotiate. Everybody's got a rock bottom price, okay? You just got to find out what's important to them. Find out what their needs are. What's good? What is the seller really going to do? What is he looking for? A quick out? He doesn't care? Whatever? Who knows?
Okay. Have you ever been insulted?
Have I ever been insulted?
By the price.
Listen, I respect somebody that lowballs my property. okay? Because it shows they're trying to get a good deal. They're not, you know, they don't want to take a lot of risk. I mean, how could I be insulted by somebody doing the same thing that I'm doing? I respect that person. So you can't insult me. I mean, you know, the comments that say, can I borrow your house for $1? You know, all right, that's not an insult. I get a kick out of it.
Yeah, that can just be a nuisance. Okay. Some people are a nuisance when they lowball too much. And I wouldn't say insulted. I just like, I got better things. And they're just not even worth replying to. And that's the other thing you'll run into. If you offer too little, then you're not going to be taken seriously. And it's not gonna much matter. And actually I have somebody. I've actually got somebody at an auction right now.
While he's doing that, guys, if you guys have any more questions.
So this is a guy that's kind of doing some stuff for me, and he's at it. He said, I told him what he could bid up to, and he said, no, they've just changed it. It was already picked up by somebody. The 28th. Guess he found the owners. Yeah. See, this is good. So I've got a deal going right now. This is a house that, like, man, I could not find the owner for nothing. I don't know if he's dead or what, but they're in foreclosure, and somebody else figured it out. Somebody else got a hold of the relative, and they saved the deal. That's where I used to make a lot of money, is on my pre-foreclosures. So I'm glad I didn't go to this thing, because I thought I might be wasting my time. But so the guy, the young man that I got there working there, he said, yep, somebody snagged it. I kind of warned him about that. But, yeah, I don't love auctions. Too many people are owner users. And I wanted to just back up when most of you know this, but like he said, I want to, never pay full asking price. Well, it just depends on what it's worth. It's not always like, the asking price does not mean that's what the property's worth. That's just where they're starting. And if you're like Ben or me, you're probably going to put it up a little higher than it's worth and let somebody knock you down, because you can always go down. It's difficult to go up, when you're being negotiated on a typical deal. Although right now we have a lot of properties, we actually put them below market value. This is another way of negotiating, right? I list properties right now. I list them below what I know they're going to sell for, lower, because I know it's going to attract more people to come look at it. And those people can stretch to pay more when they really want it. And other people that are going to pay more, that are willing to pay more for a property, say in this particular price range, they're going to come just to see if maybe they can steal it. And then pretty soon you got that bid war mentality going, which is a wonderful thing right now as a seller. So let's play the rest of this, and we'll take the rest of the questions, and we'll close it up.
I always counter an offer, okay? If somebody makes me an offer, I don't care if it's $1 million, but I'm going to tell them, listen, this is where I'm at. To me, all that matters is I'm here, where are they at? Okay? Now, if we're a little far apart by a few $1,000,000, we can make a deal probably. If we're 5 or 10 million apart, it ain't going to happen. I tell people all the time. I text a guy yesterday, a broker, a great guy. I love the guy. He sells hotels. He sent me an offer on a hotel I got for sale, and I text him back, don't waste your time, because I don't want to see him waste his time. Best deal I ever made in my life was the day I negotiated to get Carla. When I negotiated Carla, the deal was I had to take 15 other people with her. But it worked out because they all helped me have a business. So all I can tell you is, you got to play hard. You're playing a game, you're playing hardball, baby. But sometimes you can't, Every deal's different. But you should always try, when the opportunity comes up, you negotiate, take your time, don't rush it, and play the game. You might save yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions, okay? You never know. If you're in the middle of a deal right now, go to benmallah.com, consult with Ben, and let's talk about negotiating your deal. All right? Believe me, talking to me for 10 or 15 minutes over a deal you're in the middle of doing, it ain't going to hurt. It's only going to help.
Yeah, Actually, Ben was talking about having 2.5% interest, which I still can't find. So I may give him a call myself because I do want to know. That's the one I'd like to know. So, hey, great job, Ben. Also, great job, Dave Ramsey. The only thing I'd say with Ben, like I said, is it's you don't want to be in a hurry. You kind of want to be in a hurry, but you don't want to look anxious. Okay, you want to get it when you got a deal. You got to get it signed and tied right away. And so, you don't want to take too much time. I say this all the time to my mentees in my mentorship. He who hesitates gets left at the starting gate. And I remember somebody said it to me as I lost $150,000. I mean, I could have bought a beach house for $250,000. It was worth $420,000. And that's what she told me when I called her, because I waited too long to get back with her. So it's just important to know value so you can move on it quickly. But I really enjoyed this video watching Ben and both Mr. Ramsey as well. And so
we got a few questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I missed Johnny's question, so I want to circle back. So Johnny Corbett asks, do you recommend paying cash and doing a cash out refinance later, or using bank financing at the time of purchase, assuming that you have all cash available?
Listen, if ultimately you're going to finance the property anyways, then get it financed from the beginning. Now, once in a while you get a situation where you can't do that because you have to close before a bank can get it appraised. Appraisal sometimes takes a month, so if you got to wait a month for an appraisal and you got a 30-day deal, you're not going to have time. You're going to have to close it quicker. But if you know value, it doesn't matter. So the problem with paying all cash is there's a couple things. But when you pay all cash, now when you go to get it financed, you're kind of getting a refi. It's not a purchase finance. Purchase finance, you're generally going to get a better deal. You're going to get a better interest rate than you are going to be on doing a refi. So there's one negative on it. And what else?
That's good. Good. Okay, I'm taking some notes.
Yeah.
So Matt Martinez, he has two questions. They're separate questions. But his first question is there a holding period before you can do a 1031?
Not that I'm aware of. The Biden administration, which is like the most anti-business administration ever. Horrible what they're doing, killing businesses everywhere with what they're doing. But with the Biden administration, they're talking about eliminating capital gains altogether. Not eliminating, more like not allowing, long-term capital gains where they're a little bit lower. And what was the rest of that?
Okay, so he asks. He was just pretty much asking, is there a holding period before you can do it?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's changed, but generally. I'll tell you what I am familiar with. When you could flip it right away, but now I think there's the thing they're trying to say that if you flip it within a year, you're gonna pay short-term capital gains. So you're gonna pay more than you would if you waited a year. So if you wait a year, the tax burden is pretty much cut in half. So that's the big one.
Gotcha. Okay. So his second question, when you were talking about your auction. Just a second ago, he says, I've been looking at county websites for foreclosure notices. Is this a good strategy for finding a flip?
If you can get it, if I don't know if it's for a flip, but for getting a good deal, and that's what this guy did. That's what somebody else did. This thing's going to auction. They said, this one's not going to auction because the owner recovered the property, and that's what you're talking about doing. You get a hold of somebody before the foreclosure process. You save them from foreclosure. And I made a lot. If you watch my video on assignments, one of the first assignment I ever did was exactly that. These people were heading to foreclosure. I got a hold of them, and I can't even remember what I paid on. It was $500 or $10,000, but I made a deal. and they put me in touch with the people that they weren't making the payment to. Called them. I said, hey, look, I'll just start making payments. I'll just take over the loan. They go, no, thanks. We want all cash. So I had to have all cash, but I was in a position to buy the property. It was worth about $220 to $250, and instead I just called my old boss and I said, hey, boss, look at this. Let's buy it. And it was worth a lot more. And basically he closed the deal. He made most of it. I made $20,000. But again, so getting there, saving somebody from foreclosure, especially like, and this is a perfect situation, this one I just lost today. I didn't know how to get a hold of these people. I couldn't get a hold of them. I've been too busy to even look for them, to be honest, other than just doing a little bit of stuff. But when I was younger and I had more time, I found these people before anybody else. Nobody else could find them either. They're living on the outskirts of town in a trailer on private land. So I don't even know how I found them. But that's what you do. If somebody else can't reach the owners that are being foreclosed on, it means they're tough to find. And so you may find them, and that'll be your advantage over everybody else in making the deal close. Anything else?
Yeah, so that's all the questions that they asked, but I have a follow-up question. It's kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum of what Johnny just asked a second ago about the cash versus the bank financing. So what are your thoughts on, say someone's new and they don't have capital, they're still in the seed capital accumulation phase, with borrowing like hard money or using like an asset-based lender?
Well, main thing is get it tied up. Get the deal. If you know, and you have knowledge. As long as you have knowledge, you go, okay, I'll take it. And you put $500 down. You know, everybody's can find $500, and now you got a month or 2 months to buy it and close it. Okay, you got the deal. That's the big thing. You got the deal. So now, where are you going to get the money? You go to somebody you know that has money. It could be like if you, Darius, you come to me, and I'll probably say, here, I'll give you $5,000. You go away, and I'll buy it, or something like that. You know, I'd give you an assignment fee, or somebody might say, hey, I'll loan you the money. If you want to buy it, I'll loan it to you. Well, and they'll probably want at least 10%. I mean, I wouldn't even loan money for 10%. I don't like loaning money. I make more money using my money. But if I was going to loan it, I'd charge you at least 10%, and that's what you'd have. You'd have a 10% loan. But if you bought the property right, and you bought it way under market, 10% is nothing. Just a quick example here. You get a property for $50,000 that's worth $100,000. Now, you get a hard money lender that's going to charge you 15%. He's going to charge you $7,500 a year on your $5,000. Okay, so a year goes by, you sell the property, you make the difference of $7,500, so you make $42,500. Okay, now, same situation, no hard money dealer. You go to your uncle, and he loans you the money, but now he's your partner. He's going to loan you. He doesn't want to loan you the money. He says, we'll be partners. He pays for it. Now a year goes by, you sell the property, and you make $25,000, right? Mm-hmm. You make, instead of making $42,500, you make $25,000. Mm-hmm. So a hard money lender, I don't care if it's 15%, it's a better deal than getting a partner that's going to take half your money. And if the deal is not good enough that you would rather have a partner than a hard money dealer, then it's probably not a good deal. Wow. And you might end up damaging a friendship or a partnership that could otherwise flourish. So that's what I have to say about that.
That was good.
So, hey, I guess I'll leave it at that. Hey, please get my book, Wake Up and Smell the Real Estate. If you got an interest in real estate, you can read the first couple chapters free. I don't usually have anybody ever had anybody complain about it. You can look at all the different reviews and stuff. But listen, it's just so important. You've got seed capital. Preserve it. Your money's a tool. Like Dave Ramsey says, don't piss it away. And, like, Ben says, you make sure you got a good deal and negotiate it and get the best deal you can. When you're first starting out, the money is the hardest, most precious thing that you have to find and to get a hold of. And you want to be able to take that and parlay it. So you have to just treat it with extreme care. Only buy property that's worth more, and and then just make it grow. Just make it grow. So thanks for watching.